We've heard from a lot of voters that healthcare is their top or among their top issues here in Texas. And so I'm standing here with Tara, and can you please introduce yourself for our viewers, Tara?
Yes, my name is Tara Pohlmeyer, and I'm with Progress Texas.
Yeah, so the event that we're actually at is hosted by Progress Texas. It's at a beer garden, Schultz Beer Garden, here in Austin, Texas. And I'll let Maddie, our producer, kind of pan the crowd and show you guys what the event's looking at right now.
We talked to one woman who said that she's been watching all of these endorsements pouring in for
Yeah, so Tara, can you tell us a little bit about what's been going on tonight, nationally and also here in Texas?
Absolutely. We are seeing voter turnout here in Texas really surpass what we thought it would. Right now, just down the road at Texas State University, there is still a line for voting for 3 hours. And so folks are passing out pizza, passing out waters, trying to get folks to stay in line to make sure that their voices are heard here in Texas. We're seeing so much enthusiasm when it comes to Texans across the state wanting to vote progressive values. We know that a lot of times it can be surprising, but progressive values are mainstream values here in Texas. We talked a little bit about healthcare. Majority of Texans want and need access to affordable healthcare, and that's one of their top things that's turning them out this election.
Yeah, so we have seen here in Texas that the Buttigieg and Klobuchar dropping out of the race may impact the vote. So what do you think about that? How is that going to impact the moderate vote, especially as an organization that's fighting for the progressive vote?
Yes, I think some of the folks that were on Pete's or Amy's side are really kind of going towards someone like Warren or maybe Biden. Right now, though, in Texas, we are seeing Biden and Sanders lead the ticket, and we are seeing folks like Bloomberg, who is kind of an X factor since this is his first time on the ballot, maybe play a role here, as well as Warren in this election.
So what should viewers be looking out for here as we, in the next hour, start to see results come in from Texas? What should they be watching, and also outside of the presidential race?
I think watching who has turned out here in Texas. Texas is, based on age, as a lot of the country is as well, divided in who their top candidates are when it comes to their age. So folks under 45 are more likely to support someone like Bernie Sanders, while folks 65 and over are more likely to support someone like Joe Biden. So it really depends on who wins Texas, depends on who turns out to vote today.
Yeah, and regardless of who wins Texas, we've been talking to Dem officials this past week, and they told us that they're confident that Texas can actually go blue in November. What do you think of that?
Absolutely. November is absolutely a possible tipping point for the state of Texas. We have seen decades of work come up to this moment. Texas is the biggest battleground state, and when it comes to our local races and our state races, there's a lot on the line when it comes to the November ballot, and so there's a lot that Texans will be voting for and turning Texas blue for, aside from the presidency.
Yeah, and so, this is 2020, it's the census here, so how does that impact the Texas State House race in terms of redistricting?
It is so important. So 2021 is a redistricting year for Texas, and we have seen the GOP here in Texas gerrymander our state to where some of these districts are unrecognizable as a land entity. And so really what we are hoping for in 2021 is for Texas to elect folks who support independent redistricting, who support making sure that we fund census work and making sure that the state does things like expand Medicaid and make sure that we make that difference in Texans' lives.
Yeah, so what do you think is at stake in terms of the national election for this year?
So much is at stake with this national election. I think especially when it comes to healthcare, which is at the forefront of so many Texans' minds, healthcare is really on the ballot in this election. And while Texans all support affordable healthcare access and want that to happen, a lot of times we do disagree on how to make that happen. And so I think that that's what we will see when it comes to these elections results on the national level.
So what do you expect to see in the primary results tonight in terms of who's going to win?
Biden and Bernie will be very close. Biden and Sanders, I'm so sorry.
You're on first name basis with all of these candidates.
And so I do think that Joe Biden and Bernie Sanders will be at the top of the ticket here in Texas. We'll see how that plays out and shakes out. We've done some polling, and they've been pretty tied or skewed. It really depends on who turns out, but I think both Joe Biden and Bernie Sanders will be near the top in Texas.
So as a progressive organization here in Austin, what are some of the core things you're looking at and hoping for going into November?
Yes, I think really we are seeing when it comes to voter protection and voting rights, we are seeing a lot of action taken on that front. Just today in Texas, we've seen some issues where we've had some people call the voter protection hotline and want to make sure that their votes are protected. So I think moving forward, we're going to see healthcare, we're going to see voting rights play very large roles when it comes to the November election. But again, progressive values are mainstream values even here in Texas, and so we're going to see even more support for these values come out in November.
We've seen that 43% of Texans are actually under 30. So how do you think that the youth vote is actually going to play a role tonight and this year?
The youth vote is so important here in Texas, and it's really important too because some of the candidates maybe lack when it comes to talking to youth voters that, you know, enticing things. Some folks haven't talked to the youth vote quite yet, and so really this vote is so important not only for Texas but for the nation. Young people are the ones who are leading the charge when it comes to fighting for affordable health care, when it comes to fighting the climate crisis and fighting for protected voting rights, and we're seeing the same thing here in Texas. So the youth vote is so important, and when those folks turn out, change will happen.
What issues are you personally most passionate about when it comes to choosing which candidate you're going to vote for?
Yes, I am most passionate about really affordable health care, but also abortion rights here in Texas. Texas has one of the largest and has some of the most abortion deserts where there's not a clinic available nearby for a lot of Texans. And so when it comes to candidates' plans on that and how they speak about those issues, that's some of what guides my own voting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks so much, Tara. We really appreciate your time.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Back to you, Versha.